Alrighty, hello everybody and welcome in. This is the June edition of HR Lunch Bunch. If you are new to us, we always meet on the first Wednesday of the month at 12 noon West Coast time. We often have folks from other states that will pop in from time to time. And I sent out an announcement, or our organization did, about building a burnout-resistant culture. And we had a lot of people interested. So whether or not you are watching and with me present live in real time, or whether or not you are watching a little bit later on demand, glad that you're here. Happy to have you with us. If you're new to me, my name is Deborah Jeffries. I serve as the vice president of our organization. I've been with the firm for over 30 years, and I spend the majority of my time in an educational capacity of some sort or another. So by looking at the names here, many of you I have seen, I have met, we've been in class together. But for some of you, you're probably maybe new. So I encourage you to use the chat box to say hello to people, to introduce yourself, because I really do want to know why today. What about today's topic? You said, gotta be there, gotta do it, something matters. I'd really like to know. I have your contact information here because one of the things, if you're here live and in person, I always follow up with an email and I'll give you a copy of the PowerPoint so that you have that. An email will be sent to you probably tomorrow from the organization that will give you a link to today's recording so that if you want to hear it again or bring other people on board, feel free to do that at a later time. So with that said, again, welcome, glad you're here. My goal is to have a discussion. So I do have some purposeful questions for you, and I hope that you will weigh in and share kind of your experiences or what's going on, what you're doing, how you're doing it, what's working for you. So again, cameras if you please, opportunity to network and get to know people. Unmute yourself, hit that space bar, go ahead and chime in, even if your camera's not on. That way we're chatting with each other. And again, I have the chat box open. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to ask you, why? Why today? Why with this topic? What's going on in some fashion or another? I want to hear from you. So, what say you?
Hi, Deborah. This is Cynthia Silver BG from Farley Waterwit. Um, I signed up for this personally in part for personal, experience of having gone through burnout. Being in an HR profession, it's, I think something, I think I hit my burnout point after being in the industry for about 25 years. And I had pretty significant burnout after COVID and all of the just changes, and probably hit a burnout period last year, but then also watching many people around me too. And so after kind of going through my own experience to recover from that, and joining a new organization, it was one of the things that was really important for me to learn more about that. So then that way we can be more proactive in our environment of, yeah, like doing things that we can do to be proactive about it before we even get to that period. So that's why I'm here.
Oh, good. Thank you. And I'm sure you're not alone in that regards. So thank you. And I'm sorry that you had experienced that. I will be interested in you being able to shed some light, share a couple of observations if you're comfortable when we get to some of those areas, because I think sometimes we might not, if we haven't experienced it ourselves, what that really means or looks like. And while I may give you a formal definition, I think we might not all define it the same way, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So I see somebody weighing in saying we're going through a period of transitions, managers leaving, new board members, medical staff leaving too, and it's hard to sustain with the level of activity and stress that goes with that. Absolutely. And my guesstimate is that you're not alone in some of those observations and feelings where last month before, we talked about layoffs, and that some of you might even be experiencing that, or just a lot of other transitions based on growth of the organization or the economy and things that are changing in that regard. So And we've got a construction industry, it can have ups and downs, absolutely. And also, let's face it, seasonal work for many of you too. So then the capacity of people and what does that look like and who are we keeping? Um, Contact center typically holds a higher rate of burnout. We're always interested in ways to help our staff not get there. We're seeing trends with folks wanting to explore and make career changes. And part of that also can be just an FYI, what's the age group of your staff? What's the average age? Because sometimes people get to a point where they've done something for extended period of time and they're kind of looking for the next chapter. I just spoke with someone yesterday, the day before, and she did not lose her job due to layoffs. She left her job. She's been in it for 13 years. She's out of Seattle, Washington, and she said, I just need a change. There's so much that goes on with the job that she had as an executive director of a not-for-profit. And she says, I'm actually looking to do something different. I don't want to be in that capacity anymore. I've done that. Now looking for new adventures. Well, this also would be an element of you asking, having your managers and supervisors, depending on what role you all have, or if you're the HR person or some other responsibility, checking in with your employees and finding out how they're doing. Kind of a stay interview kind of scenario. Topic for another time. Um, all right, so I've got some answers there. Anybody want to chime in verbally? Okay. She says counting 6, 7, 8, giving them enough time to type and write and find the unmute button. Okay. Experienced a lot of burnout in grad school, which ultimately led to an exit from academia as a career path. Okay. But we want to avoid that going forward. Someone else is saying, hope to learn more about techniques to balance home and life. And let me share with you that obviously I created some information. I do have probably more information on the balance, finding kind of what kind of works for you. It's not all in this content. So please make sure that you send me a note or put in an extra chat in the email. I'll save those messages and I'm happy to send you some additional information going forward. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. That is not my necessarily wheelhouse. But in the last several years, I've spent quite a bit of time talking about time and stress management and kind of personal well-being and whatnot. So I'm happy to share. I'm one of those people, again, if you don't know me, if I have it, you can have it. So since I spend a lot of time on the educational side of things, the repertoire is wide, some places deep, others maybe not as deep. So, all right, let's see what I've got for you here. So thank you for weighing in. Uh, when we think about burnout, just as kind of setting the stage, so I've got a couple of pieces for you for your kind of edification. Obviously to some of the notes that even in the chat box about that depletion of energy, not being able to in some respects for some people not even able to get out of bed, just totally exhausted. And it's the chronic workplace stress, right, that has the kind of three characteristics that go with that: depletion of energy, increased mental requirements of a job, and the feeling of just negative cynicism is taking place on a related basis related to one's job, right? And you're not as effective. You know that you've done more, been able to accomplish more, but the energy, the drive, the motivation isn't there. So, and until 2023, there was some rumblings in 2020, but in 2023, it actually became diagnosed as a medical condition. I think that that is a telling statement because of how perhaps prevalent it is. It also hits us differently. So, and this is the World Health Organization getting to embarking on it becoming a diagnosable element. So I got that in there twice, my apologies. So it's not just an emotional issue, but there's a journal that did some research and the health risks associated with. So depending on your job, if health and safety, well-being is one of those components, then type 2 diabetes, coronary, Heart disease can be some of the major outcomes from this. A lot of times people have stomach issues and challenges and concerns. And if you'll notice that last little element there, under the age of 45, that people actually have passed away from burnout and all those stress related kinds of things. And what I didn't put in here that I could have from a program that I did many, many years ago is percentage of doctor's visits that the symptoms and the things that people are coming in for, the physicians were saying about 45% of the visitations were all stress induced. That if we could manage the stress, we wouldn't be having many of those symptoms. So then you tell me, this is a question for you. This is opportunity for discussion. Again, hit that unmute button. Go ahead and put something in the chat. What do you think is causing burnout? And there is some research that suggests there are kind of some main causes. What's been your experience or understanding or hearing from others? Okay, so someone's saying, in our environment today, we might be 24/7. So there are definitely those on the call here today that are 24/7 in their body of work. And yet, if we aren't officially 24/7, in fact, I was just talking to somebody on Monday, and she said, I'm going to be moving and I'm going to be in a one-room apartment. So my office space, my kitchen space, my dining space, my living room is all in one. So her fear is the work is just going to be right there, her computer right there. Can she work from home right now? Apparently, yes, but she goes into the office as well. She goes, I got to make sure that I draw boundaries for that. It's like, oh, yeah, right. And, some of you are talking about an excessive workload, maybe even feeling stagnant in your work, how quickly things are changing, even technology. Our organizations, depending on who your leadership is, like what's the latest new trend and they want to go after it, or the newest kind of technology fix or aid to help us do what we need to do faster, quicker. Just when you start learning something new, then we're changing to something new and how quickly that's happening and how quickly some programs or platforms are outdated, or you've purchased something as your HRIS system and there's new features. And now we've got to learn some things. We got to provide some training for people. All of that can be. And apparently now you guys are weighing in crazy because the chat box just keeps moving. um, so being underpaid, underappreciated, and truly, forgive me, I'm going to put my HR hat on for just a moment. Do we just feel like we're underpaid, or is the going market really we're not paying at market? And that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But then there is that element of knowing as an organization, are you at market with pay, below or above? What else do you bring to the table in terms of total compensation and rewards for employees? Because maybe the pay is low, but you've got a whole lot of other benefits that are an attractor to an employee. Again, another conversation for another time. So when we see, I see a note here, I see a portion of the staff putting pressure on themselves. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why we have to be really clear. If you're an HR person working with managers and supervisors, or if you are a manager or supervisor, please be considerate of two things. One, you're a role model. So if you're working long hours or how you behave, people see that and go, oh, my boss is doing that, then I need to do that too. Two, please be clear about what your performance expectations are, because I don't expect you to be answering emails after 6 o'clock at night. I don't expect you to be working on the weekends. Now, if we've got a drop dead deadline of some sort or another, okay, I can appreciate that every now and again. So also know your employees, what makes them tick, what motivates them. Because if you're Do I have any? Use an emoji, or you can chime in the chat box. How many of you would be self-proclaimed type A personality workaholic type individual? Do I have any of you on the call? All right, there's Kim. Okay, maybe it's just, oh, and Kelly. Oh, there's a few more weighing in. Okay, so fair point in the chat box then. How much of this is us as an individual versus the organization or the department? What are our core values? How are we demonstrating that? How are we role modeling things? Because this would be something that truly would be reinforced from the top on down and on through. So be able to to take a look at that. And I love Sarah's comment. My husband thinks I am. Mine too. Okay, back to that workaholic piece. Let's see, overworked, money stress, underpaid, feeling underappreciated, so much work they feel paralyzed. Yes. So you guys are talking a lot about one of the things that will pop up in the information is what's the workload? What does that really look like? Is it realistic? Because this is just a Deborah observation from the standpoint of one, well, maybe two observations for you. One, how do we define burnout? I've given you a little bit about what comes from a medical kind of side of things. When people say I'm burned out, what do they mean when they say that? What are they experiencing? How are they feeling? Because I'm not sure that we are all using the same definition. And so I think that's a kind of first level of consideration, from an organizational standpoint, what does that look like or mean for us? But also from a personal standpoint and one organization to another, I don't believe we're calling it the same thing. So when we talk about what's been kind of the five top reasons, and this is according to a Gallup poll and survey that was done that has, quote, five main causes. So unreasonable time pressure and considerations, or maybe that's due dates, lack of communication, lack of transparency, maybe it doesn't say honesty, but just how much communication is coming from our direct manager and support. I run into a number of folks who actually don't know how much is actually on their employee's plate because they're not actively kind of managing and checking in and having those one-on-ones. If all managers and supervisors would have one-on-ones with their employees, doesn't have to be an hour-long meeting. It can be 10 minutes. But we're truly checking on how are you doing as a person? How's it going in terms of the work? What do you need from me as your supervisor? How can I help? Being able to ask those questions with regularity, consistency. We want to be a proactive manager that gets in front of these things. Lack of clarity in terms of role, especially if it's changed. Have job descriptions morphed? How do we describe the work in our job descriptions? Is it sounding like, oh, before people are even applying for the job? So that time pressure, along with just the workload, we're doing more with less, and less has been with us for a number of years. I'm thinking at least a decade or more. The problem is I still haven't met Les. I believe he's in the building, but we keep missing each other. And so when we think about doing more with less, I need to find him. But with that said, what is the body of work? Is it possible? I'm actually working with an organization right now that has a lab manager who there's no way he can be successful with everything that's on his plate. And I've talked with his direct supervisor about the fact that what really is the priorities, because he's set up for some doom and gloom in that respects, let alone unfair treatment, favoritism, and things that you guys have identified in the chat as well. Now, I also will suggest that, and this is again just a Deborah observation for you, is technology has really come along and helped us in a lot of ways for tracking and documenting information, as well as hopefully speed and ease of finding things, referencing, spitting out reports. We're not having to do it the long way so much anymore. And yet, what we've said is we're still, quote, working an 8 hour a day, but with all this technology, we're doing it so much faster. We're actually putting in more time than we were a decade ago. We're getting more accomplished in, quote, a same amount of time, but 10 years ago, it would have taken us a lot longer to do it. So, what's that work pressure like? What have we said internally for internal customer service as well as external customer service? We answer the phone promptly. We'll get back to you within 24 hours. If you haven't this, that, or the other thing from us, let us know. How many of you give out a proposal or give out information? How many of you are delegating to somebody or not? What does that look like in terms of how much we're actually getting done in a day compared to what? And some of you might be working 4-10, which means you're getting a 3-day weekend. Are you on that fifth day? Are you working? Is your staff working? So, uh, financial times, financial constraints, a big deal. I'm seeing that. Working, raising a family, and having some time for yourself, absolutely. In terms of what I'm seeing in the chat box here. Okay, so causes of burnout, and this again is just from Gallup's poll, putting them in great big buckets. Now, you tell me, when we think about burnout, and at least one of you has identified that they've experienced this personally, what kinds of signs, what kind of symptoms, what is it that we need to be paying attention to see this in ourselves or in others, or the beginnings of, so that it doesn't go there? Because there is a difference between stressed out and burned out. Because again, burnout is that chronic fatigue, chronic not addressed. So short temper, um, sometimes rest isn't restful. Oh, yeah. Well, I would talk about how much sleep you're getting, quality sleep. Negativity, yeah. Absenteeism, definitely. Overwhelmed attitude, high emotions. And this is just I'm going to be a little nitpicky for just a moment, so forgive me. When we talk about attitude, think about what are the behaviors that they're demonstrating. Attitude isn't quantifiable. Behaviors are. So when we talk about coaching an employee or what we need, not only from a performance standpoint of expectations, what are our expectations around behaviors in the workplace? And this is why, back to that statement, how are you doing? And fine isn't an answer. Living the dream isn't an answer. How are you truly doing? Which also means whoever's asking needs to listen, some compassion, empathy, maybe be a people. So, side note, are all your managers and supervisors people? Because they need to be. Lack of teamwork, collaboration, withdrawn. So that might be they used to provide input or share ideas or make recommendations, and you're not seeing it as much. Going home early, whether it's yourself or others, right? More illnesses in general, you betcha, right? So being able to pay attention to some things. Now, let's face it, the list of things that you've identified in the chat box could go along with some other diagnoses, as it were. So we have to make sure that we're paying attention and checking in. Now, next slide. I've given you a lot of things to consider here. And you've got it in terms of the decreased or increased absenteeism, decreased productivity, maybe even difficulty remembering things. And this isn't about an age thing. This is just overwhelmed with so many moving parts, right? Or that you're trying to multitask. The experts in multitasking suggest that We're not really multitasking. We're just not doing as quality job as we need to on any of those individual things. And that sometimes we might actually have to go back and do it over again. Making more mistakes, maybe not taking a second look at things or asking for a set of second eyes, someone else to review something, taking your time before you hit the uh, send button on emails or texts because you didn't like read it and there's some typos, or our friend autocorrect, which sometimes chooses a completely different word. Um, Unmotivated, unrealistic, poor decision making, or rushed even decision making, right? That attitude, again, I know I said that word, in terms of being negative, not approachable, maybe. Um, Lack of just interest in what's going on at work, around work. There is no, repeat, there is no discretionary energy or time given to anyone or anything at the office. And maybe, again, part of this could be what was true about them? How did they behave and interact? And what's happening now? So our relationships might be strained, more distance between people, harder to get them to even share lots of information, let alone a little. Don't want to engage outside of work, maybe with their coworkers if they've been friends. So there's a lot to pay attention to. And again, little antennas should go up, your spidey senses, when you see several of these combined, right? It's not going to probably be just one thing. When you look at this list, is there something else that you would add to this list? Because I'm matching it up against what you're putting in the chat box. Or when you see this list, experiencing some of these things, anybody want to unmute and say a few words? Okay. Shalane says, at my prior job, my trigger was when I brought up a question and it wasn't addressed. I even asked supervisor if they didn't care, why should I? Right? If we're caring more than other people, and yet it was all with good intention about the questions that you asked. And I like your statement for two reasons. One, many of you have participated, learned, watched a video, read a book, read an article around psychological safety and creating that in the workplace for people to be able to ask questions, to be able to share ideas and not be ridiculed or not have something, have any kind of form of retaliation because they asked or they went there, they did something, they took a prudent business risk on behalf of the organization in some fashion. So being able to be really thoughtful about what are we doing to create that environment. Again, if you're a manager or supervisor, or you provide training to them and working with them, then what are those kinds of things that help reinforce the trust component? And in addition to that statement I just made about training your managers and supervisors, are you spending some time on this as a topic with your managers and supervisors so that they can become more aware or more educated on what to pay attention to? I think that needs to be a component of your activity within the workplace. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. The second thing that I like about what you said is for each and every single one of you, I encourage you to take a quick moment and think about what are the things that spark you? What are the things that are your hot buttons? That if I pushed it or stepped in it, that's a thing for you. Because those also create stress, bring back feelings and emotions. Those are places where maybe it's a boundary line for you. Do you know your boundaries? Do you educate others about those? Do you share those in the workplace? I'm not asking you to share your deepest, darkest secrets with others. Give us a little guidance on how best to work with you in some fashion or another. So that's why I like two of those points that you brought up. So thank you for that. All right. Anybody else? Opportunity to weigh in because I have the next question for you. But before I go there, are there other signs that you've experienced or someone that you know has experienced?
I would say one of the things that we tend to notice is they start kind of blaming the job, and the job hasn't changed, but they have, and their
Right.
feelings towards it. So I feel like that's kind of a signal that, ooh, we're hitting some maybe potential level of burnout. And then what can we do to get in front of it and maybe make them feel better about their job? Because it can't change what the job is or the challenges of the job. But what we can do is maybe change how you feel about the work that you do and try to find ways for them to, understand how they make a difference. Because I think that's very important to our workforce today.
Absolutely. And I'll go so far as to say, regardless of your generation, and I would also throw in there from an onboarding standpoint, think about the fact that you have kind of here's our organization, who we are, what we do, why we do it, why it matters. How does the department fit into that? And then here's my job. And I believe that it's a manager and supervisor's job. Again, my bias that it's manager or supervisor whose job is to help paint the big picture. How does the job fit into all of this? Right? It's not just about the job, it's what problem the job solves so that we are seeing ourselves as part of something bigger. Paint that picture because oftentimes people do want to be part of something bigger than just quote the job, but can they see how it fits in to everything? And that could mean a little cross training or just adding some components to onboarding. It can't be just a one-time deal though. So love it. Thank you, Kim. Fabulous observation. And I think you even got I saw some thumbs up in the emojis for you. Anybody else? All right. Here's my next question for you. Then, based on this, where or what do organizations need to focus on? So, when we think about the topic as a whole, the activities, the all the elements that make up your organization, and I mean all elements. I don't want to give you all the answers. What do you as an organization or a representative of the organization, what rocks, what things can we be looking under to find or explore to reduce the opportunity for burnout to hit our folks? What do you need to focus on? And I know that's some of you might be thinking, that's why we're here, Deborah. Don't worry, I got you. I got some ideas for you. I just want to make sure that um, I have a sense of what you're thinking about or looking at. What do you think? A consistency, absolutely. Support from supervisors. And let's be clear. What does support mean? Depending on who's saying it. What does an individual, an employee need, want from their supervisor when they say I need more support? What does that word have a definition to? As an organization, manager, support your employees. Have we been specific about what that looks like or means? Maybe by department, by roles and responsibilities, let alone by action. Ah, yes, we're all humans. We all have emotions. In all sincerity, situations don't cause emotions. People do. So, again, where are those hot buttons, maybe? Communication, transparency, monthly meetings, employee recognition, all kinds of events, fun events for the company, feeling like you matter, that there's value. Um, yes, a simple thank you can go a long way. And I will suggest to you that when people are talking about feeling valued, please remember one of the greatest gifts that you can give to people is to truly listen. Active listening with another individual. That means value. When you're multitasking and you're not even really looking at them, if you're face to face, if you're constantly allowing interruptions during a conversation, non-verbally, you've just said you're not important right now or to me or whatever. And you don't have to say those words for people to get that feeling. And keep in mind, please, our brains, we're a little wired for negativity. So if I feel like I'm being slighted or ignored or not valued, that's where my brain will go. And some of your employee as an employer, you've had people come and participate in my supervisory series. And I've heard from managers and supervisors, what's the number one reason you're not providing praise and recognition? I don't have time. And my answer almost is always exactly the same. You can't afford not to have time. You need to make the time. We make time for things that are important to us. You need to make the time because I don't think that that's a valid excuse because I think it is an excuse. We're all busy. We all got stuff going on. But I promise you, you're probably going to be looking for somebody to hire if you don't take care of your people. Now let's talk about how much time that takes. So just being able to invest in the right things at the right time. And maybe they don't know how to do it. Maybe they never got it from their previous supervisors or someplace else they worked. So they're uncomfortable doing it. Opportunity for us to teach them, help them in that regards. Some level of flexibility, um, in some fashion or another, what people are up to, what they need. Um, being able to give them some relief from tasks or activities that are going on. So yeah, you guys are doing a nice job inside the chat box here. Um, I'm going to share my slide with you, and there are 2 slides to answer this question, quote unquote. And you tell me whether or not these are resonate, whether or not you're doing some of these things, perhaps. What's the handbook language like in terms of not just the welcome, but describing the company or how we go about doing our business? When you think about not only handbook, any communication that's going out, emails that are going out. What about your job postings? What about meetings that you have? What's the vocabulary? Informal homework for you all. Go back to the organization, start listening kind of with a third ear, and what language are people using? Are we hearing similar words? Is somebody saying something and other people are kind of following that? Because if we have a leader who's struggling, people are watching and listening. One of the most important people in an employee's life is their direct supervisor. What's the level of not only that, then communication, transparency, honesty, clear, concise, timely communication of information? When we think about transparency and openness, I've had supervisors tell me, I give them a paycheck. That is recognition. Maybe not so much. But Corn Ferry, many of you have probably heard of that organization, says a purpose-driven strategy that clarifies roles and involves employees. Inclusive process leads to stronger engagement. It is a known fact that people do better as a whole when they're involved in conversations, decisions that impact their job directly. Not so much maybe always the strategy kinds of things or some other department, but being involved and offering opportunity to offer input, make suggestions to their direct work. Because sometimes people make decisions without them. and we're not being then inclusive or collaborative. So when we talk about what are the goals of the organization, let alone the department, let alone an individual job, when things change or we move a different direction, are we communicating that so that people feel empowered, let alone prioritizing? No one ever said that, well, I should not say that. There's those always and nevers. No one ever said, most people don't go that we've over communicated. A lot of times they don't feel like they're in the know. So when they don't feel useful, they don't feel valued, they don't feel like they know what's going on, disengaged, low morale. So when we think about your appreciation, recognition, some form of acknowledgement, frequency, style and approach, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And just because we've been doing something, if we've been doing it the same way for a long time, it might not be meeting the needs of the organization or the needs of the employees. Have we asked? Is it resonating to them? Many of you have been reading, like I have, that the element of more personalization in our benefit offerings, personalization more in the recognition, so that it's what they can hear, it's what they can experience. Yes, there's this element of fair and consistent, but your employees aren't all the same, so we're really saying we're going to treat them all the same, let alone looking under the rock of how are we doing around wellness topics, information, discussion, support in that area, employee assistance plan. What do our health benefits look like? What are we promoting or working with throughout the year? Because according to AFLAC last year in a survey, heavy workloads, long hours, insufficient pay, and gosh darn it, just too many meetings. And I don't know if I always agree about the meetings. Meetings are important if meetings are advancing us, moving us forward, that we know the purpose of the meeting. Get input, share information, collaboration time, just even rapport building time, all valid. But people kind of want to know the why. Don't care your job, don't care your gender, don't care your generation. Why matters to people. So I don't think I'm alone. Mental health is something that really needs to be a business imperative to take care of our people. And what is that looking like in your organization? Right? So a lot of these things I think are kind of essential components of an initial look through what we're doing and how we're doing it. Anybody a Franklin Covey stamp fan? Did I accomplish that which was most important, or was I just busy? So what are the priorities? Do people know? Is the work meaningful, or am I just going through the motions? So again, I ask you about what does support look like? Because support, clarity, trust, communication, reinforcing resilience, recognizing when people are being resilient, resilient behaviors, resilient vocabulary, bouncing back from something that was a setback, whether it's the organization, a department, an individual. Um, we're looking for people to give us that discretionary energy and effort. So there's a piece here of is it's not just the work, it's are people doing things in their life that give them energy as opposed to drain their energy. So in some respects, are we also playing to people's strengths? And how can managers and supervisors do that from an employee standpoint? So I've got some more questions for you. And these are questions for you, and these are questions you can take with. And again, I'll send out the PowerPoint. If you want to take a picture of these, you certainly can. Are you approaching burnout? I frequently feel out of energy or exhausted. My job seems to be more stressful than it used to be. Difficulty concentrating on tasks. You've noticed or been told that you're more irritable lately at work, probably at home too. Less creative than you used to be, more headaches, stomach aches, more just aches and pains. Don't feel like you're really part of a team, don't feel that sense of connection or belonging inside the organization. Again, reinforcing why you took the job. And let's face it, why I said yes to a job isn't what keeps me in a job. It doesn't. And people go through life cycles of activities of life, which can have a change. Their own personal priorities might change, or something happens in their life that gives them some clarity around what they're doing or how they're doing it. And if people aren't really caring about the quality of work or the product of work, okay is good enough, as opposed to, I'm not suggesting perfection. You did not hear me say that. Just able to kind of think about that. Now, if you answered true to 3 or more of these, you might want to talk to somebody. Now, if you're HR, I can't say go talk to HR, but the idea is you might want to reach out. If it's 4 or more, now we're up in the ante, right? And if you have an EAP, maybe there's an opportunity to chat with somebody. And if it's 6 or more of those, then you're headed in the wrong direction. So maybe these are some questions, and you could probably Google other questions for other people to ask to get a sense of maybe some self-awareness. Because we as humans have a tendency to explain things away. But maybe, just maybe. And again, what's our definition of burnout? I've only know one person personally who's ever experienced burnout. And she was, I can't get out of bed. I have no drive to keep doing anything for anyone, whether it was at work or home. She was checked out, literally, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. She couldn't give it to anybody. And her husband and her daughter were extremely worried about her. And she found that she could not continue to work where she was working. It was sucking the lifeblood out of her. So when I think about burnout, I think about this individual with an inability to function in what was otherwise a very successful career, very driven individual, highly self-motivated. None of that was coming to the surface. And if we get far enough down in that toilet bowl, it's awfully hard to come back up. So that's why we want to take care of ourselves ahead of time. So, what have you done for yourself? What are you instituting, implementing inside your organizations to tackle burnout? Obviously, my focus is kind of quote, so employees don't get there, any level of employee. And yes, to your comment about the symptoms can correlate with depression, you bet. And see, and depression isn't something that you can just see. And if you've had somebody who has experienced this and been diagnosed with depression, it is tough. It is tough to be with those people because I think oftentimes we feel like we want to do something and we want to help someone. And are we saying the wrong thing? We're doing the wrong thing. We don't understand enough. We don't know it's a thing until it's way, way, way worse than it needed to be or get to. And how can we help? That one is a difficult one. Well, not that any of this is easy, but when you've got someone you love who has depression, wow. And I say that only because I have had and didn't know that that's what it was and didn't know how to help him and wish I had known more sooner to be able to try and assist in some fashion or another or to seek some treatment so much earlier. So if your gut, we all have a little voice in our head. just one little voice. If you've got multiples, I'll stay longer and we can chat afterwards, okay? But with that said, don't discount that gut when it comes to, I just know something's not quite right with an employee or with a coworker, a peer. Something seems off. It's when people are not acting like their normal selves. I don't think there's anything such as normal, but normal for them. Don't discount that. Let's find out a little bit more. Okay, I have to stop talking. What are you doing to tackle burnout?
Hi, Deborah.
Hi,
I would
Khadija.
just like to add that I really appreciated you saying that it's our responsibility to paint the bigger picture for our staff, to just kind of go over their contributions. I work at a social service nonprofit, and we support our community, our low-income community. So it's a good reminder to bring this back up with staff and let them know the many different ways they're contributing to our mission, because we only hear it, I want to say once when we do the new employee orientation, but I think it's a good reminder to do it just more than once and a few times throughout the year.
And let's face it, sometimes we might share with them things that are coming externally, which is lovely to hear those kinds of kudos. But also, it's not always just from our direct supervisor. We sort of, and I don't mean to discount this, we sort of expect that from them when we hear it from others that see and experience that contribution, or how we've supported them or helped them or whatever it is. That can make a huge difference. And I don't think it's ever too much. People need to know that they're actually making a contribution. And sometimes, let's face it, if some of you are the type A personality workaholic, you expect that of yourself. And the answer is you're not giving yourself kudos. And so hearing that for someone else, we might have to say it a couple of times for it to actually sink in that you really are making a difference. That, believe it or not, what you might think is just normal, we don't. We so value and appreciate that. And so being able to truly say that to them in a language that they will hear, right? It has to resonate with them. So, Letitia, thank you so much. All right, she got the ball started. Who's next? Kim says, giving staff an opportunity to learn and encourage them to use community time off. Advancement plans. Let's talk about those. Shadow programs. Is that like job shadowing to experience other departments and other career opportunities? Mentoring, reverse mentoring. It's just not a most experienced individual to our newbies. It can go the other way. Encouraging coworkers to delegate to you when you're seeming stressed, when they seem stressed and overworked. Brooke, love it. Giving them permission. They have to know they have permission to do that. And since you're saying that, you're encouraging that, sharing that with everybody else. Are we? Let me know when things are. Come talk. And again, be a people, be a good listener. Maybe not good, great listener. Okay. Well, I have a few for you. Just a few. I think I actually have like 2 slides, and this one has a lot. But let's face it. Let's look at our staffing. Again, more with less. You can't do everything that maybe is on this list. Worth discussion, discussion with others, exploration of, are these issues or concerns for us? So, what are the high priorities? Are we having meetings that last too long, that really are not productive meetings, and we could give back some time, the gift of time? Encourage boundary setting, upselling? Okay, all of a sudden I'm in sales mode. Cross training, cross upskilling people in terms of jobs or opportunities. A lot of organizations that I've had the privilege of working with talk about promoting from within, promoting from within. Just keep in mind that we also, when we promote from within, Let's make sure that there's some additional training depending on what they got promoted from within, especially if you got promoted to like a supervisor or manager. They're just not going to know how to do the job. And chances are, if they got promoted, they want to be successful. And that's stressful. And they might overcompensate. What are your cultural initiatives? Again, psychological and safety well-being. Think about how you define manage. People don't always like to be quote managed, definitely not micromanaged. So what does that really look like? The more we can give people choices, options, alternatives to things, they get to weigh in, they get to choose. And that's true with corrective action, let alone opportunities within the organization. How are we doing in terms of helping people, offering things for people to find balance, reassess work schedules, flexibility? That doesn't mean working from home. That means during baseball season, I get to go home early. I get in early, I leave early so I can go to my son's baseball game, right? So discouraging the after work, after hours technology use. When we think about overall training or job roles, shared roles in some fashion or another. So what are we doing from a benefit standpoint versus all those other activities? Again, if you have an employee assistance plan, what's your health benefits? What other kind of benefits? Who can you partner with? Make exchange or barters for things? Maybe customers or clients that offer or do something. Can we rope that into our kind of scenario? Do we want to recognize mental health? Mental Health Month sadly was last month, but you can start planning for next year. But the World Mental Health Day is Friday, October 10th. Mental Health Day is Friday, October 10th. You could start doing something to plan for that and bring recognition to things, having people talk about, and again, training managers and supervisors. It also means starting at the top. What is our culture? If you asked every employee a one word for our culture, would any of this be resonating in these areas, these symptoms or signs or characteristics that we would be concerned about, so that we can prevent it, learn to role model, inspire and motivate people. But that also means people have to be more self-aware and conscious about what they're feeling, how they're doing. They've got to put a name to feelings, right? Because if we're already feeling burned out, or we're starting to have some of those feelings, it's time to take a break. And break could be as simple as I got to get away from my desk and I got to take a walk around. I would put that more in the stressed out, right? But what gives you energy? What brings you joy? Are you spending time doing that? Back to having a balance, things that give you that energy so that you can take care of yourself. Mindfulness, gratitude, positivity. Life happens, setbacks happen. I want people to feel all the feels. But I also want us to say, how can we work with this, work through this, be creative problem solvers? You have to sometimes remember just to breathe. Take a step back, an adult time out for yourself. Recognize when that headache is starting, right? So the more we invest in our physical and mental energy, and in a lot of respects, in all seriousness, movement, walking during breaks, after work, get a group together, yoga, meditation, visualization, aromatherapy, whatever floats your boat, do them all. But being able to think about whatever is comfortable for you, whatever feels good, you'll want to keep doing it. If you're doing something that someone else does and it just doesn't really resonate, you won't stick with it. Because honestly, I have this little general guy here because sometimes I think we glorify these things. In all seriousness, look at this badge. I didn't get a lot of sleep this week. No, look at my badge over here. I'm more stressed out than you are. Stress? You don't know stress. I had to do the 24/7 for the last 3 days. We have this competition with each other. Who can be the most? We need to turn that around. Who can be the most chill and relax? I'm not saying there isn't a little fire under the tush to getting the work done. But if we're all in competition with each other about being more stressed out, leading to burnout, we're going the wrong direction. We need to change that vocabulary inside our office, inside our outside in the field, with the work crews, whatever that looks like. So again, priorities, workload. So here's my request of you. What resonated with you? What kicked in? Is there something for you specifically, you as an individual, for you to start working on? Is there something you need to stop doing because it's draining you, it's not working for you? And I'm not suggesting you're quitting your job. You did not hear that. You cannot say that Deborah from HR Answer said I should quit my job. That's not what I said. I'm asking you to take a look at, and then what is it we need to start working on, or discussions, or getting a group together, a team, whatever, inside our organizations to have some conversations. This is bringing us towards the end. So if people want to chime in anything, I'm always the last one in the room, and I'd love to hear. If you want to put a note in the chat box, I would love for you to do that. If you have other questions, now's a great time to ask. And some of us can sit around and, if you have the time, chat a little bit longer. We're seeing a note in there about sharing workload with the team, reducing some hours, and thinking about what that can look like for you. And then I want to make sure that I let you know that our next topic is going to be tackling the gender biases that might exist inside our organizations. Again, back to some of those things that we're doing or things we've written. And is that a concern? Then I have some other topics coming up the rest of the year. At least this is what's planned, if everything goes well. And again, if you are here with me now, I will do a follow-up to give you a copy of the slides if you would like them. You can delete it if you don't. The only person I won't know who actually is here is the second Deborah Jeffries on the list. If you rename yourself, then I'll know who was here. Because I will give you, as a bonus item for today and today only, I do have a few stats and a few observations for those of you who are HR specific and burnout and assistance, thinking about you and the department and the function that you have inside your organization. And there might be a gem in there for you as well. So I think that's what I know. I usually will stop the recording so that we can have that be kind of an official done and hang out. I just want to thank all of you for being here. So many of you showing up. Again, I do hope there was something that was helpful. I really appreciate those of you chiming in the chat box, unmuting yourself and participating. That means everything. So let me know if you need something. I'm here for you. And otherwise, we'll call that an official done deal. Action ended for this lunch bunch. And I hope you'll join us again in the future. Love to have you. And again, I'll be the last one in the room, hanging out and chit-chatting with any of you if you have additional questions. I appreciate you. Take care and have a wonderful Wednesday.